in law, is the Abuja Municipal Area Council a local government? Would you say AMAC?
Really, AMAC is not a local government per se. The man that has been given the assignment, the FCT minister, cannot on his own be delegate. No, delegatus, not protest delegate. You cannot delegate what has been delegated when we say local government, but act whatever is inside.
If you feel that the market will not of course, it's so. Fundamental right not to appear before it. If they have its reasons. In this, the confusion in this issue is that we really don't know who is the accuser and who is the judge, who is the prosecutor. Jubril raised the issue of the House was defensive.
Hello there, you're welcome to the program, and still legally speaking, and I'm your regular host Chijioke Kanu. Today we are going to continue on the issue of criminalization of criminal justice as promised in the last edition of the program. I have my guests with me, and it's still the same discussion as we had, continuation of discussion we had last week. Please sit back as you enjoy the program.
The indication that the bank gives is always DAR, drawer's attention required. Is it not actually blurring the provisions of the Provisional Check Act?
I think it
because
is
you cannot prosecute under that.
Because DAR can mean different things. It can mean a lot of things. You understand?
Okay.
It has to follow the provisions of what the law says.
Yes.
What does the law say? That if there is insufficient fund, I don't think anybody will just say that DAR means insufficient funds.
Exactly.
And that's more reason why I think these banks, they need to do a lot of sensitization and training for their staff on the legal implications of all the things that
instruments they have.
Yes. Because if you continue to have such cases coming and your bank is involved, people will begin to lose confidence in your bank.
Yeah.
You know, you have to tell your staff what to do in each circumstance. If there is insufficient fund, why don't you just write insufficient fund?
Yeah.
If you still insist on putting DAR, you should put something in bracket, insufficient fund.
Yes.
If it's DAR, we need confirmation from the owner of the account. You put that in bracket so that it's clear as to what exactly you mean by DAR, because it has legal implications.
As Mr. Blank said, DAR is
a generous word
to protect their
customer,
but it's a breach
and to protect themselves.
It's a breach of law. It's a breach of
the contract.
Yeah, it's a
breach of the law. Sorry, not even the contract. They are infringing on the law. They are infringing on the law. The law specifically requires them to state why they are dishonoring the check. Why the check is dishonored. This one, like I said earlier, this one will, limit the SSC's the need to go to police and report that a dot check has been issued. And with that, the police will now have less work coming to them as a result of checks termed dot check.
Yes.
So when a check is refused, the payment is refused as a result of irregular signature, you cannot just write drawer's attention required. How do I know that it's irregular signature?
It makes it difficult for the police.
Even the police will quickly, arrest the person, quickly arrest him and detain him. You understand? At the end of it, they will not discover. That is why most cases on dot check, the police will lose.
Yes, they do.
Because they lose all the cases in dot check. Because at the end of the day, the reason for dishonoring it might not be a reason to amount to an offense under the Act.
All right, posted check under the Negotiable Instrument Act.
That's the one we call postdated check.
It's not a check.
It's not.
It's called a contingency. And you see people being brought to the police station day in, day out, and at the end of the day, that check would have been a postdated check. At what point does a postdated check elicit liability on the part of the drawer?
The postdated check no, it's not a check, it's not a legal tender, it's not an instrument until the maturity.
Yes.
The maturity is the date at which it is postdated.
Yes.
That is until the maturity. It is a nothing. It is a piece of paper in your hand,
Okay.
and cannot attract any penalty.
Yes.
In fact, you are not expected to present it at that point until the maturity date.
Yeah.
And the
At most-
bank cannot accept it
Yes.
until the maturity date.
They said it's a security, it's a civil security for a transaction or evidence of debt. How correct is that? And a check given, whether posted or not, it's an evidence of debt.
Well, one can look at it in this way. One, let's assume that you sell a piece of land to me, and at the moment, the day you sold this, I don't have sufficient funds in my account, and I issue you with a postdated check.
To my knowledge,
Yes,
that their
issue.
money is not in the bank and there's no money.
Well, that's the assumption. That
Yes.
There's no money in the account. That is
Yes.
why I'm giving a postdated
Yes.
check. Or even if I have sufficient funds, it's possible that I've issued other people checks, and they are going to clear the money in the account. So the idea is this: one is to confirm that, look, I'm interested in that property that you sold to me. That's why I'm giving you this check,
Yes.
so that you don't sell the property to another person.
Yes.
So that keeps the property in abeyance. You don't have the right to go and sell it because there's a transaction between me and you.
Yes.
Second one is, in the event that I present this check and it is dishonored because there's insufficient fund, the check that has been issued, also represents an evidence of transaction between me and you.
Good.
That I owe you money. If I don't owe you money, somebody would not have issued that particular check. So the person can still go to court and then claim the value of that money on the check, that, look, this person owes me money, and because he owes that money, that is why he gave this particular check to me.
There's something I want you to clarify. A postdated check. If it is assumed that both of us knew that there's no money in that account,
It may not be that.
it may be other things that made me
Yes.
not to pay
Yes.
immediately.
Yes.
Now, for whatever reason, I'm not paying immediately, which the drawee knows. That's the person that gave the check
Yes.
knows.
Yes.
Am I supposed to get back to the person I gave the check, if the money I was expecting, or if the condition, the reason why I gave it subsists? Assuming I'm expecting money, the money did not come. Am I supposed to get back to him before the date of presentment to stop him from presenting it?
Yes. The position is this. The law said, if the law prescribes doing of things as contingent for the doing of the other, the non-doing of this thing renders the other one ignored. Now, the check may have been given for a purpose. Maybe the consideration has not passed.
Okay.
Maybe that from here to that point, there are certain things you will do to earn that money. Until that date, you have not done that thing. So at the time I am giving you the thing, it may be between us that you are to do certain things to earn the money which I have given you.
Yes.
So that before that date, if the situation changes, the drawer should inform the other person, please don't present this check. Either you have done all what we agreed you should do, or that I have not earned the money to make up the payment.
Okay.
It is the duty of the drawer to inform the drawee, and also the bank.
Okay.
He is to inform the bank and the drawee that this check should not be presented, and if presented, not to be honored. If he has done that, he has sufficiently protected himself. But where he failed to do that and the check matured, the other person may not have the need to refer to him back again before presentation.
All right.
And at that point, if presented and dishonored, the offense arises. Yes.
But they quickly, before we round up, they say that this criminalization of civil matters is the reason why there is so much traffic in the police station, the complaint traffic. A lot of complaints are flying in from got the place, and they say that also connects the court congestion and equally the prisons. How do you treat that connection?
I think I agree that it is one of the factors that is causing congestion in our courts, in the sense that cases that are not supposed to be taken to the courts by the police, are being referred to the court. So, for instance, there's a transaction between me and you, which is a civil matter. They will turn it into a criminal breach of trust, and the courts are inundated with them. In some states, even people are allowed to file their direct complaints. Cases that are civil, they won't file them in courts as criminal cases. So, the time that the courts are supposed to use to deal with the real criminal cases are devoted to dealing with cases that are purely civil and are supposed to be resolved in a civil way. So you have this congestion. The same thing we have even with the prisons. In two ways. One is when you have those civil cases, purely civil cases, person is taken to the court and then he is remanded in prison custody. He does not even have anybody to get him out on bail. There are also minor, what I would call minor criminal cases that have been turned into very serious or capital offenses. Somebody steals, ordinary stealing, and then he's charged with robbery. And of course the court will say, I cannot grant you bail for robbery cases. So you continue to have so many of such cases that cannot be proven.
Yes.
Okay? And the person will continue to remain in prison detention. The cases will be in the courts, and then you have this big congestion. So until we deal with some of these issues, it will be difficult for us to reduce congestion both in the courts and then also in prison.
Is there a way that the courts can know the end of a case from the beginning, so that issues of bail and detention and all that can be minimized? Bail can be easier, and the detention will be minimized, and congestion will also be minimized.
There should be a way. Let me say here that most of the cases most of the courts that are congested with this misplaced matters are magistrate courts most of their time. And most of the emails of the prisons are issues from the magistrate courts and lower courts. And that is where the police ply. You understand? They carry all manners of cases to that place. Like
even marriage cases.
Even marriage cases, where they have no jurisdiction to do something, they dive into it. So as a matter of fact, like we recommended earlier, if there are desks to determine cases that are criminal and civil, I think little or no much cases will go to the court, and the court will be less congested. The same applies to spilling over to the prisons. So most of the cases, most of the inmates of the prison are waiting trial. Like my friend rightly said, somebody will be taken to court on a case that is not criminal. The magistrate may be on a Friday. The magistrate grants a bail, nobody to take him in on bail. He's taken to the prison, and the matter is adjourned to the next 3 months. You understand? These things are the issues. So, like you rightly said, there are ways to know. If we have a trained mind, the magistrate sometimes may know that this matter is not criminal in nature, but they cannot just immediately acquit and discharge, because this case, this our legal system what it is.
Yes.
Though that you will remain innocent until proven guilty, but the other party is expected to either prove or fail before the magistrate can act on it. But if our law can be trimmed in a way that the magistrate can so much determine, which they can determine by looking at the facts or the charge,
whether it contains
if you look at the charge,
yes.
In fact, most of the time, the magistrate should be, doing their duty. If a charge comes in as a magistrate, you are a court of summary trial. You look at the charge, ask the accused person some questions. You understand?
Yes.
Relevant questions. And if you find that the wisdom in you, find that this matter has nothing criminal or there's nothing to prove on it, you
make your ruling.
Make your ruling and let the man go.
Now,
The other
Yes.
area that the magistrates can really play a role, especially for the states where we have the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, where it involves the detention of the person that has been charged. The ACJ makes provision for periodic review of the detention order. So even if the person is not released on bail, every 3 months the prosecution needs to come and give a reason why this person
Should continue.
should continue to be in detention. So they can use that provision to get people out on bail, let them enjoy their freedom, while the so-called complainant continues to run around with his case.
We keep it here until we go on a very short break, and when we return, we'll continue with the discussion. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. The topic is still criminalization of civil matters in Nigeria, and my guests are still with me, Danladi Plank, legal practitioner, and Chief Izinwiwu, also a legal practitioner in Abuja. Please sit back as we take the concluding part.
the bail procedure, police begins its action by arresting people. Why don't they begin this action by investigating people first before taking people into court? Because the first thing the police do in Nigeria, whether EFCC, whether ICPC, I think ICPC is a bit liberal.
Yes.
EFCC, police, they take you in first,
before investigation,
and then they take you from the police custody to go for investigation.
Yes.
I think that is
which
not
is
right.
wrong, which is not even our law. Because like we said in the dot check issue, when a dot check is a complaint on a dot check is presented, the police ought to have investigated whether the matter is that of a dot check or not before arresting.
That means they should do investigation first.
They should do investigation before
suspect.
calling in the suspect. Yes, we received this complaint. Then with that complaint, you go to the bank and find out the position of the book of the bank.
Chief, the police here confront you with the complaint, not with the result of
the result of investigation. That is the problem. That is why they said they are putting the cart
before the horse.
before the horse.
I think it's also a function of a number of things. One is training. If they are not properly trained, you continue to have that. Second one is also it's a function of resource availability. They don't have resources to do surveillance. They don't have resources to do investigation. The person does not even have money to travel from one location to the other to go and investigate a particular case. The other one is also a function of greed.
Yes.
He knows that this is a civil case, or he knows that there is not sufficient evidence. But the first thing he wants to do is to arrest the person, detain him. And he knows that, well, if we do that, the money we ask from them, we want to extort from them, they will bring it out, because nobody wants to be detained in police station. So it's a combination of a number of factors, and until we deal with them, we'll continue to have this.
The police once told me that I should go to the court and wait for them. That the person, they have the person in custody, and they say they are still investigating. Is that correct? That is not, to me, that is not the law.
The issue of that is holding charge. That is what is referred as. Yes, that is what we refer to as holding charge, which have been abolished.
Long time ago.
A decision of the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court has been, in a plethora of cases that the holding charge is abolished. So what the police do is they are still engaging on holding charge. You cannot hold somebody and begin to investigate. Okay, that he should fund your investigation. Is that what you are telling me?
Let's go to your house.
Let's go to your house.
They put chain, the man follow them.
You say pay for transport. We are taking you to your house. You pay for the transport.
It's funny.
It's funny. That is what people call a conviction before trial.
Yes.
By that putting chain and holding him and all that,
you
have already convicted him that he's a criminal before you now start investigation. It is done in other crimes. What the police, before they can take time to investigate you. and establish the offense
Yes.
before they now take you in. You understand?
Mr. D, you worked in Justice for All. I'm aware you worked in
Yes,
Justice
Justice
for
for
All.
All program. Yes.
Yes, what did you people do about remedies for this kind of infringement of rights?
Well, basically what we did was two things. One is to create awareness
Okay.
amongst the populace in the area states where we work about their rights, as provided in the Constitution and other international instruments. The second thing we also did was to support agencies or institutions that are responsible for assisting those that have been arrested or detained, by the police. So we supported the Legal Aid Council. We did some work with the Human Rights Commission. We also did some work with NGOs, providing them funds to be able to apply for bail for people that are detained, and then also help them, to advance some of their causes. People should be able to go to court to challenge some of the actions of the police. People were encouraged also to go to court to sue against malicious prosecution. If there is no reason for somebody to be arrested and detained and even be prosecuted, the person should not be. But if you insist on doing that, the person that is wrong has a right to go to court and ask for damages for malicious prosecution.
People are afraid that you cannot take government to court, you cannot sue the police. Is that correct? Don't you have the right in this country to sue the police if you are wrongly detained?
As the correct position is that everybody has right to sue the government. Yeah, I think many people have succeeded in claiming damages against the police and EFCC on wrongful arrest and detention. But our society is such that has not grown to the area of people trying to establish their rights. You understand? Yeah. And I think that is the cause of all these things. If people, they consider how much they will spend to establish their rights. The police, you are in the police station and the policeman slapped you. He has no right to do that. You can take him up for that. Take the police organization up for that. And establish that he has no right to slap you. You may not earn money as a result of it, but you have established the fact that the police cannot slap anybody they like anyhow. So because we are docile to our rights, some of us who are in public, who are public litigants, public issue litigants, we have been trying to come in situations like this, especially where public interest is involved. But everybody he has the right to establish his rights, human right or whatever, whether human or other rights, civil rights, against anybody, including the police, the federal government, the state government, and whoever. So it is very erroneous to somebody to believe or say that you cannot sue the police for infringing on your rights.
I think the other thing I would want to mention here is that when police officers do something that is wrong, I think the institution should be able to sanction them and not try to also cover up for them. If I sue the police or the government, because of the action of a particular police officer, if, for instance, the court awards me damages, 10 million, if the police organization pays a loan, it will encourage other police officers to go and do that. Yes. I would want a situation where the police as an organization will be collecting the money from that person's salary, the officer who did that thing. If actually the police did not ask him to do it.
That brings us to the issue of joinder. If the police as an institution has actually infringed on your rights, when suing the police, what Mr. Plank is saying that you should join that particular police officer which brought the wrong about.
Yes, most of the time. Sometimes there are cases where the particular officer, you understand, who really committed the offense acting on behalf of the police is joined. Sometimes they are joined. Yes. There are cases when they are joined. But because they are like agents of a master, established master, You do not go to the agent most of the time, except when he performed that duty outside his calling. You understand? Outside his professional calling. Yes, so you can now join him. Well, of course, the law allows you to choose. Maybe in the case of top feasors, the law allows you to choose who to sue.
Yes.
You understand?
Right.
Either you can sue both or sue one and leave the other.
Right.
So that is
Gentlemen, thank you for coming to the program.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very
My
much.
pleasure. Thank you.
I hope to get you guys back again. We have not finished this matter.
Again, we are caught up by time, but I believe that we have done what we can to the topic. But let's keep having your response and your thoughts on this issue, so that we reason together on it. But before we come your way again, it has been Legally Speaking, and I am Chijioke Kanu saying, have a nice day.